a world teetering on the brink of unimaginable change. Humanity, young and burgeoning, walked a path intertwined with the celestial, a reality far removed from our modern understanding. In this era, a righteous man walked the earth, a man whose communion with the divine was so profound that he was taken bodily into the heavens, granted visions that would forever alter the understanding of creation and the darkness that threatened to consume it. This is the story of Enoch and the terrifying revelation of the Nephilim. Prepare to journey beyond the familiar narratives into the heart of a cosmic drama that whispers of fallen angels, hybrid giants, and the dawn of an age of corruption. Book of Enoch, an ancient text revered by some and debated by others, paints a vivid picture of Enoch's extraordinary ascent. It tells how this seventh generation from Adam, a man who walked with God, was lifted from the earthly realm. His mortal eyes granted glimpses of celestial wonders. He traversed the highest heavens, witnessed the dwelling places of the angels, and stood in the very presence of the Almighty. It was during these celestial journeys that the secrets of the cosmos, both beautiful and terrifying, were unveiled to him. In these divine courts, Enoch beheld the intricate hierarchy of angels, their roles and responsibilities in the grand design of creation. He saw the unfallen radiant beings who served with unwavering loyalty. But he was also shown a darker truth, a transgression that had sown discord in the heavenly harmony and unleashed a terrible consequence upon the nascent world of humankind. God revealed to Enoch the story of the Watchers. These Watchers, a class of high-ranking angels tasked with observing and safeguarding the early earth and its inhabitants, had succumbed to a forbidden desire. Drawn by the beauty of human women, they descended from their celestial abodes, violating the boundaries between the divine and the mortal. Their transgression was not merely one of lust. It was a disruption of the cosmic order, a defiance of God's established separation between the realms. The Book of Enoch details how these fallen watchers, numbering in the hundreds, chose earthly wives and, through this unnatural union, brought forth a monstrous offspring, the Nephilim. These beings were of immense size and power, far exceeding the natural capabilities of humans. Their appetites were as colossal as their forms, and their presence upon the earth brought forth an era of unprecedented violence and corruption. Imagine a world where giants roamed the land, their strength capable of crushing mountains, their hunger devouring the very resources meant to sustain humanity. The Nephilim, offspring of celestial beings and earthly women, were not merely large. They possessed an unnatural vitality, a hybrid vigor that made them virtually unstoppable. They consumed the labors of humankind, turning the fruits of the earth to satisfy their insatiable needs, leaving behind a trail of devastation and despair. The Book of Enoch recounts the specific names of some of these fallen watchers, their leaders, and the particular sins they introduced to humanity. Zemjaza is often named as their chief, the one who orchestrated their descent and their forbidden unions. Azazel is another prominent figure, credited with teaching humankind the arts of warfare, the fashioning of weapons, and the secrets of cosmetics and other vanities, knowledge that further corrupted their hearts and led them away from the ways of righteousness. The earth groaned under the weight of the Nephilim's violence and the pervasive corruption they fostered. The natural order was disrupted, and the delicate balance between humanity and creation was shattered. The cries of the oppressed reached the heavens, and God, beholding the extent of the wickedness that had taken root, knew that a decisive intervention was necessary. It was during his celestial sojourns that God revealed to Enoch the divine decree, the judgment that would befall both the fallen watchers and their monstrous offspring. The vision was terrifying in its scope, a cosmic cleansing that would reshape the very face of the earth. Enoch was shown the fate of the Watchers, bound and cast into the abyss, their celestial glory extinguished, awaiting a final judgment for their transgression against the divine order and their corruption of humankind. But the judgment was not to be confined to the celestial realm. God revealed to Enoch the impending destruction that would engulf the earth, a cataclysmic flood that would wipe away the rampant wickedness and the unnatural stain of the Nephilim. Only a righteous lineage, preserved through divine grace, would survive this cleansing, a new beginning for a world teetering on the brink of annihilation. Enoch, a mortal man, granted these terrifying visions of celestial rebellion and earthly destruction, was tasked with a heavy burden to deliver God's judgment to the Watchers who still lingered on earth and to warn humanity of the impending catastrophe. Imagine the weight upon his shoulders, a man walking amongst giants, carrying a message of doom from the very throne of God. His words, recorded for posterity in the book that bears his name, stand as a testament to the consequences of crossing divine boundaries and the enduring struggle between the forces of light and darkness that has shaped the destiny of our world from its very dawn. Enoch, bearing this divine revelation, descended back to the earthly realm, a world unaware of the cosmic drama unfolding and the impending doom that hung heavy in the celestial scales. He walked among the descendants of Adam, a solitary figure carrying the weight of God's judgment and the desperate plea for repentance. His words, though divinely inspired, likely fell upon ears deafened by the clamor of a world increasingly consumed by violence and the seductive whispers of forbidden knowledge imparted by the fallen Watchers. Imagine the scene. Enoch, a man who had stood in the glory of God, now walking through settlements where the monstrous offspring of angels and humans held sway, their towering forms casting long shadows of fear and oppression. He spoke of a coming deluge, a cleansing flood that would erase the corruption that had taken root. He warned of the consequences of defying the divine order and the judgment that awaited those who had transgressed the boundaries between the celestial and the mortal. His message, however, was met with skepticism and scorn by many. The power and influence of the Nephilim were undeniable, their dominion seemingly absolute. Why would the gods, who had fathered such powerful beings, unleash a destruction that would also claim them? The warnings of a solitary man who spoke of visions beyond their comprehension likely seemed like the ramblings of a madman in an age intoxicated by earthly power and the allure of the forbidden. Yet, among the lineage of Seth, a remnant of righteousness still flickered. Some, their hearts not entirely hardened by the pervasive wickedness, listened to Enoch's words with a sense of unease, a recognition of the growing darkness that overshadowed their world. They saw the violence, the unnatural appetites of the Nephilim, and the subtle erosion of the divine principles upon which their early civilization had been founded. A seed of fear, a whisper of understanding, began to take root in their hearts. Enoch continued his ministry, a beacon of righteousness in an increasingly darkened world. He delivered God's pronouncements to the Watchers who still lingered, their power and influence deeply entrenched. These fallen angels, having tasted earthly pleasures and wielded dominion over humankind, were likely resistant to his message of impending judgment. They clung to their earthly power and the unnatural authority they held over the mortal realm, perhaps believing their hybrid offspring would ensure their continued dominance. The Book of Enoch details his encounters with these Watchers, his pronouncements of their eternal chains and the coming destruction. It speaks of their fear and their desperate pleas. But the divine decree was immutable. The cosmic balance had been disrupted, and a cleansing was necessary to restore order to a creation teetering on the brink of utter chaos. As the years passed, the signs of the impending judgment likely became more evident. The natural world itself may have begun to reflect the spiritual corruption that had taken hold. Perhaps the seasons grew erratic, or the land became less fertile, subtle warnings of the divine displeasure. Yet the majority of humankind and the powerful, overwhelming opposition, he walked with God, and even as the world around him descended into darkness, his light shone brightly. His translation into heaven, a direct ascension into the presence of God, served as both a reward for his righteousness and a powerful foreshadowing of the ultimate separation between the righteous and the wicked that the coming judgment would bring. His departure left a void, but his words, preserved for those with ears to hear, remained a stark reminder of the consequences of defying the divine order and the reality of the unseen realms that so profoundly influence the destiny of humankind. The stage was set, the players positioned. The world, oblivious in its corruption, stood on the precipice of a cataclysm, the echoes of Enoch's warnings fading into the din of a world hurtling towards its watery grave. The age of the Nephilim, a testament to a forbidden union and the ensuing chaos, was drawing to its inevitable, devastating close. The silence that followed Enoch's ascension was not one of peace, but rather a deceptive lull before the storm. The Nephilim, unchecked by his prophetic pronouncements and emboldened by their seemingly unchallenged dominance, continued their reign of terror. Their demands grew more tyrannical, their violence more unrestrained. The descendants of Seth, though clinging to their faith, lived under the ever-present shadow of these giants, their pleas for divine intervention rising like a desperate lament. The whispers of the coming flood, once dismissed as the ravings of a madman, likely began to gain a chilling resonance as the natural world itself seemed to groan under an unseen burden. Perhaps unusual weather patterns emerged, or strange occurrences hinted at a disruption of the established order. Yet the majority, blinded by the immediate power of the Nephilim and the allure of their corrupted world, remained deaf to these subtle warnings. Noah, a righteous man from the lineage of Seth, found grace in the eyes of the Lord. He, like Enoch, before him walked with God in an increasingly godless world. The divine command came to him with unmistakable clarity: to build an ark, a vessel of salvation for his family and the creatures of the earth, a refuge from the impending deluge that would cleanse the world of its wickedness. Imagine Noah, a solitary figure embarking on a seemingly impossible task, constructing a colossal vessel in a world that mocked his efforts and scoffed at his warnings. The Nephilim, in their arrogance, likely viewed his undertaking with amusement, their immense power leading them to believe they were impervious to any earthly catastrophe. They could not fathom a judgment that would reach even their towering heights. As the ark rose, a testament to Noah's unwavering faith and obedience, the final day of the antediluvian world ticked away, unnoticed by most. The corruption reached its zenith, the violence its peak. The very fabric of creation seemed strained under the weight of sin. Then, as foretold, the heavens opened. The waters above the firmament were released, and the fountains of the great deep burst forth. A cataclysm of unimaginable scale engulfed the earth, a cleansing torrent that swept away the wickedness and the monstrous offspring of the forbidden union. The reign of the Nephilim, so terrifying and seemingly absolute, was brought to a sudden, watery end. Only Noah and his family, sheltered within the ark by God's grace, survived the deluge, along with the remnants of the animal kingdom. A promise of a new beginning for a world cleansed and ready for renewal. The memory of the Nephilim, the giants who once walked the earth, would become a chilling legend, a stark reminder of the consequences of defying divine boundaries and the enduring power of God's judgment and mercy. The account of the Nephilim. From the Book of Enoch, offers a glimpse into a tumultuous and mysterious period of prehistory, a stark warning about the dangers of transgression and the ultimate triumph of divine justice. It speaks of unseen realms and the consequences of their interaction with the mortal world, a narrative that continues to fascinate and provoke thought. If this exploration into the enigmatic world of the Nephilim from the Book of Enoch has captivated your imagination and sparked a deeper curiosity about the mysteries of the ancient world and the unseen battles that shape our reality, then we invite you to delve further with us. Please like this video if you found this journey into the antediluvian era thought-provoking and intriguing. Your engagement helps us share these fascinating and often overlooked stories with a wider audience. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into ancient texts, biblical mysteries,